Hi everybody, Ian Bremmer here, and a quick take to kick off your week. Want to mention this big deal, trade deal between the United States and Europe. After a number of months of these negotiations with the EU and with many other countries around the world going very slowly, they are now in advance of the August 1 new deadline picking up steam, and the US-EU breakthrough is by far the most significant of those negotiations to date. It's also a big win for the United States and for President Donald Trump. The European Union accepting a 15% tariff on their goods coming from the United States. There are some key exceptions, some key quotas for industries, which means that overall it's going to be a lower effective rate than the announced 15%, probably average U.S. tariffs on European goods coming to the United States going to go up about 10 points from where they are right now. Not reciprocal, which means the Europeans are not putting such a tariff on American goods going to Europe. So clearly that's an advantage for American corporations, American production, a disadvantage for the Europeans. It does mean that costs are going up for either the Europeans that are exporting, or they have to basically eat that cost increase. They have to send those goods to other places if they can get better prices, or they have to pass it along to American consumers who have to be willing to pay more. All of those things will happen, so inflation is going to go up, but clearly this is a better deal for the U.S. than for the Europeans, and that's because the Americans are in a stronger position than Europe. And, if you add to this the fact that Trump had tried to get a deal with the Russians and failed, and the Europeans were not part of those negotiations and would have been undermined, and Trump is now angry at Russia and is expanding his support for Ukraine and is allowing the NATO allies to buy whatever American military capabilities they want for the Ukrainians. He's also backing away from the support that you've seen for Eurosceptic parties undermining the EU. You may remember Elon Musk was all over that when he was inside the administration. He, of course, has now famously broken from the administration. And also J.D. Vance in his early months was supporting such parties and calling the EU themselves adversaries of the U.S. He's backed away from that significantly. So net-net, the transatlantic relationship, which is historically the most important strategic alliance in the world, and certainly for the United States, is becoming more stable than it was several months ago, and I think that's quite important. This is in many ways similar to the Japan deal that the U.S. announced days ago. It puts a lot of pressure on other remaining countries to get to a deal. South Korea certainly stepping up their offer to the United States in this environment, really concerned that if they don't sweeten it, that they're going to end up in a much more difficult economic position. And the big problem on trade is China. This is where the United States doesn't have leverage, doesn't have the cards, and had to back down, and that's going to hurt America's position long-term vis-a-vis China. But clearly this is a win. The EU announcement is a win. I think it's probably the most significant win of the Trump administration in their second term to date. I'd add Japan as a significant win as well, certainly tightening migration to a far more manageable level with America's southern border with Mexico. The strikes on Iran, which elicited no real response from the Iranians, pushing back their nuclear program by probably 2 to 3 years. Also, marginal but nonetheless positive U.S. engagement helping to broker ceasefires between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo, between India and Pakistan, and now between Thailand and Cambodia. So if you want to look at the first 6 months of the Trump administration, he does have a successful record to run on. I think that's significant and it deserves mention. As I mentioned, I think that U.S.-China has been a big negative. I think that, of course, the inability to bring Russia-Ukraine war to a close, not a surprise, but nonetheless something that is a disappointment for Trump, and of course, the ongoing war in Gaza that the Americans have only facilitated and done nothing in terms of pressuring Israel. But near term, you would have to say that on the global stage, the wins for Trump have been more significant than the losses to date. The question mark, and it's a significant one, is what are the implications of that long term? Because countries around the world that are in a much weaker position than the United States don't want to get into a big fight with the U.S., and so they will capitulate near term. It's the opposite to this taco trade, which no one should really be talking about going forward, because in the aftermath of the UK and Japan and the EU and all of these trade deals that are largely being resolved on American terms, you can hardly say that globally the result is Trump chickening out. On the other hand, long term, everyone I talk to around the world sees the United States as not just unpredictable, but unreliable. And that's a really big difference. If you're unpredictable, if you have a plane that's unpredictable, it means it's probably going to be delayed. You don't know exactly when you get to where you're going, but you're going to get there sooner or later. If you're unreliable, that means the plane might not make it, right? And so you need to plan an alternate way of getting to your destination. And that's what I see happening long term. That is the long-term shift in trade deals and negotiations and efforts to de-risk away from the United States, whether it's the EU or Mercosur or India or other countries around the world, Canada. They want to find ways to ensure that they don't have to capitulate the next time the United States does something to them that demonstrates its unreliability. And this isn't just about trade. It's about the Iranian nuclear deal. It's about U.S. membership and things like UNESCO, in it, out of it, in it again, then out of it again. You name it. It's much harder to rely on the most powerful country in the world to do things that they have historically said that they will absolutely do. And so long term, I think that does really erode America's diplomatic position, its influence, its capital. So too, of course, does its increased deficit spending, its increasing demographic challenges, again, long term. But near term, lots of big wins, and that helps to reflect why the markets in the U.S. are doing so well right now. That's it for me. I hope this is useful. I'll talk to you all real soon.